So I want to have any questions about this? Do we have any questions? Okay.
Refer to the thing you mentioned that if U.S. and a neighborhood country have war, so you think we should support like your neighborhood. But if the strong country absorb the weak country, so there will be this little country won't be your partner, and the U.S. will. Don't mention U.S. Maybe the stronger country will make some problem to you. So in this situation, you earn nothing. So is there possible in these kind of things?
Okay. Now I think your question refers to whether China will keep the principle of justice. That means if a neighbor being annexed by an external power, what China is going to do, and whether China will help this country to resume their country or stand at the other side. And the other side. From my understanding, this international norm has already widely accepted, and no country allowed to annex any other states. That's why the war launched by the U.S. in 1990 against the Iraq's war annexing Kuwait, and widely supported by the international community. And that's why Russians face big difficulties when Russians take over the Crimea, right? So if that happens, from my understanding, China will definitely stand at the weak side and against any country, even that country is China's enemy. We will against that kind of action to annex our neighbors. And that's only from the terms of morality. In terms of interests, if we allow our neighbor being annexed by the other power, how can we trust that neighbor that country to not invade China? In our history, we always face a problem. Our neighbor being annexed by the external power, first, that's the first step. And then they started to invade China militarily. So even for our own sake, for our security interests, we should oppose any power annex our neighbors. Obviously, if our neighbor initiates a war against others unreasonably, I don't think they can get support from China. And also China must concern, like you say, not only our economic interests, security interests, and also we have to consider the justice. Justice relates to what? To our international image. International image may be not interest for the weak country, but it's a big interest for the rising power and superpower. The same like for the company. And the small company never care about the reputation, but international cooperation must care about their cooperation. Those people, the street vendors, they can use rotten mutton to make this what a yang rou chuan, this steak lamb, and so they can. This because the cost is very low, and even they being caught for selling this rotten meat. How about the McDonald's? McDonald's turned out one shop, once a shop in Moscow, and was found with some mass mass rush, and then the next day, all McDonald's and lost their customers. So I mean that when China growing into a big power or major power or world power, China, the international reputation and its international strategic credibility will become our very, very important interest. Just like these big companies really care about their trademark. Thank you.
My question is, how do you think our Chinese public IR view, means how we see how our Chinese people idea? Because nowadays, people claim back the Far East territory. We claim back the Chua Republic, which is in Russia. We claim back the Myanmar. And we fight with Vietnam, we fight with Philippines. How can you give some comments on this?
And I'm minority among Chinese in terms of a view of China's international status. I published a book under the title Inertia of the History and China and the World in the Next 10 Years in 2013. And then I published the book and criticized by the netizens nationally wide because I argue China will become a superpower no later by 2023. And most of the people in China don't think China has the chance to become superpower. They think it's impossible. They can give you all kinds of reasons. The economy will grow not as strong as before, and the political corruption, and one-party rule, and the traditional Chinese culture, all bad things will make China never be a superpower. But then I have different view. So I said that China will become a superpower, and then someday I get an email from I don't know who, and from a netizen. He said, "Hey, Professor Yan, you get support from the Li Xianlong, the Prime Minister in service of Singapore, and he delivered speech at a party school. He said that China don't know China how strong in foreign eyes. So in some way, I'm looking China not from China, but from outside." So my answer to you is that most people don't think China will be a superpower. So there's no common ground for discussion about this issue. Okay?
So you've been speaking about China as a rising power and also as a future superpower. So I was wondering, what is the current status of China? Can we consider China a developed country, a developing country? And if it's not a developing country, when we will be able to consider it as a developed country?
Mm-hmm. Very good question. That's a real dilemma faced by Chinese government. And at the press conference, and Li Keqiang, Prime Minister Li Keqiang faced the similar question. He said that China is still a developing country. We're not as rich as a developed country, and we're not an industrialized country. But he also said, we're the large country, we're second largest economy. We also admitted this. So now it's difficult for China to define China's international status as a developing country or developed country. And from my understanding, China will gradually define China as a developing country in political terms, not in economic terms. The developing means a kind of a political characteristic of developing countries rather than economic characteristic. And from my understanding, recently, and we coined a new term to categorize the country into three groups: developed country, developing country, including China, and underdeveloped country. So I think more and more these developing countries will become underdeveloped country in Chinese term. So now, we can solve the dilemma. That means that we still maintain the position as a developing country, and then we'll make others become the underdeveloped country. This is already in official statement. Okay.